Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 8.9 patch notes. You can find a link to this Google Doc in the description. If you want to follow along, I'll also have timestamps as well, and I'm going to try to do this a lot faster than my previous patch notes. So I've made a concerted effort to trim it down. I only have on this list what I think are the most important things that could potentially change the meta. We'll talk about all this stuff really briefly, but I'm going to aim to try to make this 15 to 30 minutes instead of the typical like hour to hour and a half. So some of you will like it, some of you won't like it. Just let me know in the comments if you've been a long-time follower of this. Let me know if you like the new kind of rapid-fire format. I'm just trying to make it a bit more approachable to people that have never been to the channel that might get scared away by the hour-long videos. So we're going to be running through this just a little bit faster. I'm going to have a separate video that's all about the support tier list, and then I'm going to have the top 5 for each champion role, and this time I'm going to split all of those up into separate videos, and I'm going to release them one day at a time. So I should have an entire week here where I'm releasing one extra analytical video. So top 5 mid will come out, then the next day, you know, maybe top 5 top, and then top 5 jungle, and so on and so forth. So you get a little piece every day that you can watch that's like maybe 15 to 30 minutes instead of like large blocks of hour-and-a-half videos. So let me know what you think about the new format. Let's go ahead and get in here. Okay, so the TLDR biggest winners, melee mid laners, spell pin AP users, Kennen, and Zyra. Biggest losers are going to be tier users and Kaisa. Let me go ahead and just add a little color here, because why not? People like color. There we go. And now we're going to go into why and what I think might change about the meta. There's a lot of changes on this patch. I listened while I was on the road returning home today to Freak's tier list video and Scar's tier list video, and each one of them had over an hour long on these notes. So I've got my work cut out for me to really crank this in here. Okay, so as far as the overall mana changes, the thoughts behind these changes are that spell casting is too free right now in the mid lane, and the game has become too much about who can push their lane and roam rather than who can interact with the mid laner. So especially at really high levels in the professional level, you'll get very non-interactive games where just people will pick wave clear champions and just push the waves into each other, you know, for 15 to 20 minutes, and they might roam and try to make a play somewhere else on the map, but it doesn't force moments of conflict in the lane. They tried to address this as well with the cannon minion changes and kind of the gold changes last patch to make people want to fight over the cannon minions. So this is another step in that direction. What they want is they want laners to fight. They want there to be death. They want there to be exciting moments and outplays. They just don't want this sit back and win on macro style of play. They also nerfed heal and buffed ignite last patch. So this is once again a growing trend of what they've been doing. So the thought behind the mana is that people will just spam all of their spells, especially once they get tier or last chapter, to push the wave, and it's just not interactive. And so they're trying to dial back the mana so that you have to choose, okay, do I want to use my mana to push this wave and potentially run out of resources so that I have to back first, and therefore they're going to get an advantage in this lane? Or do I want to try to use my mana to affect the enemy champion, and if I do that, then through different outplay mechanics, you know, I could potentially force them to go back, and then they'll lose CS. Because it made no sense to cast spells on the enemy because they could dodge it, they could outplay you, you could get ganked by the jungler. It was just a lot riskier. So it made sense just to gain incremental advantages by picking a champion with stronger wave clear, stronger scaling, and just use it on the creeps, because the creeps are not going to dodge your spells most of the time, at least at higher level play, right? So that's the thought process behind this. It's not to punish people, it's not to make the game feel less fun because you can't cast more spells. It's just to make each spell feel a little bit more valuable, feel a bit more important, and to allow you to outplay your opponent by forcing you to interact with them, or at least making it a lot more incentivized for you to interact with them rather than just mindlessly push the minions. So ultimately, it's good for the game as an esport from a viewer's perspective, and it should be good from a player's perspective, because now if you learn how to play better, you can actually better than your opponent, that is, you can actually express that skill in the lane a lot more by using your spells on them to dominate them. So that's the thought behind all of this. I think philosophically, it's a very good change. Also, having such huge wave clear potential and so much limitless mana really limits the amount of champions that can be played in mid lane, because if they don't have a lot of good wave clear, then they're not going to be viable in the mid lane. This is why you don't see things like Diana, Katarina, even champions like Echo and Fizz at the highest levels of play. You don't see them very much because they don't have much wave clear. Even though Echo and Fizz are very good in solo queue, as it goes up and up and up, wave clear becomes more important. And so they want those flashy outplays. They want someone to play Fizz at the professional level, right? They want people to play Echo at the professional level because those champions are fun. They have lots of outplay potential. Now, Fizz is not very fun. I'll say that as a support main who likes to play enchanters. He's not very fun when he gets to 10 kills. But as far as, like, is it good for the game? I think it is because it allows for the exciting champions to get more spotlight, especially at the pro level. And so now melee champions are going to be a lot stronger, particularly resourceless melee champions or champions who have very low resources they have to spend. So specifically things like Zed, Katarina, those are going to be kind of the two biggest beneficiaries of this, because Katarina doesn't use any resources, so she's going to love this, the fact that everyone else is getting their mana nerfed, and Zed, of course, uses energy and not mana, so he's going to love this as well. Zed also benefits very heavily from the Ninja Tabi nerfs on the last patch, and the nerf to Locket, to where it makes it really, really unfavorable to get Locket against AD champions now. So Zed was already getting pretty good, and he's going to get a lot better on this patch because of that. Now, they did do some other compensation nerfs to Seeker's Arm Guard to try to... They foresaw that Zed particularly might be a problem with these changes, but they're trying to preempt that by buffing Seekers, which we'll talk about as well. But that's kind of the overall context for mana, so I'm going to speed through it a little bit faster. So Doran's Ring, but that's my thoughts on it. Good for the game. Does it hurt some champions? Yes. Will it enable other champions, though? Will there be a greater diversity in mid lane because of these changes? Yes. Ultimately good for the game? Yes. Okay, so they're taking away the 50% mana regen on Doran's Ring, which, you know, for most mid lane champions at the time, champions that were designed for mid, they would have 6 mana per 5. So this is about 3 mana per 5. If it was, you know, an 8 mana per 5 champion, then it would be 4 mana per 5 that you're losing. 4 mana per CS is what you got as well. They're taking that away. And then there are 16 waves roughly per 10 minutes, so perfect CS would be 104 if you stay in your lane and hit every single CS up until the 10-minute mark. However, on average, most people are going to be getting, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 64 CS across all ELO bands, and that goes up and down depending on your ELO by 10 minutes. So that's an average of getting like 8 CS per minute. And so what you end up with is that 4 mana per CS ends up being... pretty close to 2.66 mana per 5. So overall, it is a nerf. It's definitely a nerf to mana. They are changing other mana stuff around, but it's a nerf to Doran's Ring of Mana. So I think that this is going to be great for champions who want to get the... I'm blanking on the name. The thing that stacks that becomes Mage Eyes. I can't remember the name of it. But it's going to be great for them who want to change, who are going to get more potion capabilities out of that. So I think Katarina gets that item. But yeah, anyone that wants to go 3-pot plus... why am I forgetting the name of that? Let me just look it up real quickly. It'll probably be associated with Doran's Ring. I know it turns into Magi. Dark Seal, there we go. So Dark Seal is going to look a bit more attractive for people middle lane now, because this flat 100 mana actually could potentially be more mana. Well, the 5 mana per 5 gives you 60 per minute, so it's not going to be more mana. But for mana-less champions, you know, especially, or champions who don't really have mana problems early, this might become a more attractive buy. You do get 25% increased healing from potions, and you get an extra potion because it's cheaper. I believe that it sells... Yeah, it sells for a reasonable cost, too. Doran's Ring sells for a lot less, I believe. Yeah, it only sells for 160. So you can sell this back later, potentially, even if you don't turn it into Mage Eyes. They did another buff to Mage Eyes as well, which makes that a lot more... valuable, in that whenever you have 10 stacks, then you get the bonus movement speed. Yeah, at 10 stacks. So it makes it a bit more attractive if you're snowballing to go off of Mage Eyes. So anyways, will this hurt Doran's Ring users? Yes. Will it make some other users consider perhaps getting a Dark Seal earlier on if they don't have other mana problems or they have other ways to generate mana? Yes. So ultimately, it is a nerf for most mana champions earlier, and that's what the intention is, right? So that people don't have as much mana. They are also changing Lost Chapter, so is this good? I think so, overall. It is, once again, better for champions like Zed and Katarina, but most mages will have to deal with this early on, and this is going to open up some space for champions like Fizz, for champions like Echo to be a little bit stronger, that might struggle and get out-harassed early, because now people are going to have to think more carefully about their mana usage. Okay, Lost Chapter is kind of a strange trade-off, so basically it costs 200 gold more, but it also gives you 126 extra value on acquisition. So if you're not a champion that needs a ton of mana early, but you really want to buy a Ludens for the mid game, maybe someone like Ahri, I don't think has huge mana problems early on, but I'm not 100% about that, but really likes kind of the burst damage off of Ludens. This ultimately is a buff to gold efficiency when you're working between, once you get your Lost Chapter and then you're working on the Ludens. This is going to be a buff. I don't think they gave Luden itself any extra ability power. I'll have to scroll down and look, but I don't think they did. I think they just buffed the, yeah, so it's going to end up as the same ability power, but it gives you a little bit earlier on. So that 200 extra gold, though, is a very big deal. That's like an extra, how many, like, maybe if each minion, without the cannon minions, like, I forget, they did the gold changes and messed me all up before, but, like, maybe 15 times 6 per minion wave. So if you get all 6, that's 90 gold, then times 2. So it's basically 2 extra minion waves of really strong CS. So for most people, a minion wave comes every 30 seconds. So for most people, this is going to be like 1 to 2 extra minutes before you can get your Lost Chapter of good wave management. So people are going to have to really get used to that. It's not completely game-breaking that it's 200 more gold. You can still get pieces of it and be fine. So you can get like your Amp Tome and just like the, I think it builds out of Sapphire Crystal. Yeah, you can still get your Sapphire Crystal and Amp Tome and be alright on your first back, probably. Grab you some boots or something instead. But it is going to be a little awkward for some users. So once again, they don't want you to have infinite mana as early and spam your spells, but it'll still be okay for most users. You're just going to have to be a bit more cautious with how you're using your spells, particularly to wave clear. And once again, that's the goal. I think goal achieved. And, you know, it didn't hurt the last item at all. They did compensate you for whenever you complete this. It costs 200 gold, but you're getting like 300 something gold worth of value. So you're netting an extra 126 gold. So they are making it more valuable once you actually hit that spike. But yeah, it's definitely going to hurt some early game people. But I think the Lost Chapter people will be okay. So I think like Talia will be okay. I think that other people who eventually want to build into Ludens that weren't tier users will be okay out of this. Now, Tear of the Goddess is the really big nerf that is going to smack a lot of people in the face that want to get this. This is a catastrophic nerf. This is really, really hardcore nerf. Now, this, once again, this is manageable. I think this is fair. A lot of people who get Lost Chapter don't desperately need the mana as much as tier users. And, you know, is it a minor nerf? Yes, but, you know, it still has a decent build path. And, you know, they give you some compensation buffs here with some extra mana when you complete it, so it feels good to get it. All right, tier is just nothing but loss. You lose when you get tier. So it's 100 more gold, which is a very big deal at this price point. I mean, 750 gold, that is 100% your first back usually, especially for supports. If you want to get this early on, so like a Tarek or a Sona, this is almost always going to be your first back item. And so that extra 100 gold is a very, very big deal, especially for supports. So for people who can actually CS, you know, this might just be like 1 extra wave worth of CSing, maybe, you know, an extra 2 waves. So maybe 1 minute delay on your tier. For supports, that extra 100 gold is a really big deal, though. That could be up to 2 minutes extra before you can get that if there's no kills and assists in your lane. So that's going to really, really hurt Sona, and it's going to really hurt Tarek as well. Those are the 2 that like kind of have to get tier, I think, the way the current itemization works. But, you know, indirectly, this could also hurt Karma and Nami. Sometimes they like to get tier in certain situations. So, you know, it'll hurt them. This mana cost refund, though, is absolutely brutal. You're getting a third less mana than you used to get. And if you think this number doesn't matter, see Coin when they nerfed Coin like this from 15% to 10%. If you've ever played with Coin and you remember how much mana it gave you before and now it doesn't give you that much back, it's the same thing. A really, really big mana nerf over time. And then also, I'm not sure exactly, I didn't run the math on this. It's bad, okay? The way that you are not going to get your maximum mana back, but it stays proportional to how much mana you currently had. So if you have 50% mana and you're supposed to gain 4 mana off of this, you would only gain 2 mana, I believe. Or you would, like your max mana would go up by 4, but you would only gain 2. So all around, this is a super nerf. And don't forget that they also nerfed Archangel's Staff before to where it has a lot less AP before it turns into Seraphs. And once you complete Seraphs, I think it was all good once you complete Seraphs. But because it's going to be a lot harder to get there, and they're nerfing the max mana on everybody, which I'll show you here in just a second, Seraphs is going to do, it's going to give a lot less AP, I think, overall. And so they just really, they buffed Seraphs, they over-buffed it a few patches ago, and they've been dialing back a lot of power on it. So yeah, this is going to, anyone that wants to use tier, this is really bad news bears for you. So people who like Cassiopeia, people who like Rise, and this is going to help the professional scene. This is going to make this item much, much worse as an early buy, and it's already pretty bad. This is also going to hurt Ezreal quite a bit, which is good. Maybe people will play him less in my games, but I know Ezreal's a fun champion, and people like to play him. But yeah, I think particularly people who need to charge that tier, the Anivia, the Cassiopeia, and the Rise, and they've been very strong for like 4 or 5 patches, so I think it's fair to smack them a little bit, but yeah, this is definitely going to hurt them. So I think overall, Ludens is the big winner here. So yes, they did nerf Lost Chapter a little bit, but the fact that they also nerfed tier by way more means that Ludens are kind of the indirect winner. The biggest winners like Katarina, Zed, people that don't need the mana. But the second biggest winners are Luden users that didn't need tier, that kind of have moderate mana usage and just like to have a bit of extra mana. And that's Talia is the person who immediately jumps out to me. Someone like Twisted Fate's also a winner here for reasons we'll talk about in a little bit, but he doesn't need to get a mana item outside of Rod. People who just go Rod into the rest of their stuff will probably be alright with this too, because they haven't touched Rod, I don't believe. So if you just need like 1 mana item and you're not super hardcore, you don't need tier. I think overall it's a buff because it's nerfing your competition. Okay, GLP doesn't matter. They changed this a little bit. It seems like it should be good, but for some reason people hate this item. It has, did they lower the cost on it? They just changed the combined cost. The total cost is the same. Okay, it doesn't matter. You get 100 extra mana. The slow duration is nice. The missile speed being faster is nice. You know, you might see this on Swain or like Irelia and Soul, but otherwise you probably won't see this. Fiendist Codex, this is actually quite nice. This extra 5 ability power, it makes it feel better when you're building up to something like a Zhonya's Hourglass or something like a Twin Shadows. This is just a really nice pickup. I even get this sometimes on Zyra, depending on how the game's going. If I just need like a quick buy item, I just happen to have 900 gold and I need, like we're going to go fight for Baron or something, sometimes I'll pick one of these up. So it's really nice to get that extra, you know, 5 ability power on there. Twin Shadows buffed by 10. You know, I said a few patches ago that this item is not really that great. Like, it's not very cost efficient. Well, it's getting there. It's a lot more cost efficient now. And with the build, if you want to go for like Ingenious Hunter on someone like Zyra as your secondary after they nerfed Inspiration so much, if you want to go Taste of Blood, Ingenious Hunter, Sorcery, obviously, with either Comet or Airy, you know, all the way down to Scorch, but then as your secondary, you could go Taste of Blood, that does give you Sustain and Lane as Zyra, and Ingenious Hunter, if you want to go something like Twin Shadows, does make you a bit safer to assassins because you can use them more often to scout, and it allows you to potentially start fights and hit your roots better. But yeah, now that it's moving on up, it's becoming a little bit more gold efficient, so it's 86%, which isn't, you know, spectacular, but, you know, it used to be much less than that, so it's okay. So now you're only paying, instead of like, you know, 700 gold for Spooky Ghost, now you're only paying, you know, 400 gold, 350 gold for the Ghost. So, you know, it's a step in the right direction. Will everyone get this item? No, but there might be some people. You might see a Bard get this occasionally. You know, you might see someone like a Zyra in certain circumstances maybe get this. But it's nice. An item that has a cool ability that's, you know, a little underloved gets some action here. Is that right, Rory? Is that right?
She agrees. She's been saying, yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of which, they did also nerf Seeker's Arm Guard, so they're really trying to give you a better build path into Hourglass. And it says Hourglass and Banshee get the 5 more extra ability power. So that's nice. That's like an extra 100 gold worth of value there. So it's basic. It doesn't discount the item by 100 gold, but it basically is like giving you a free extra 100 gold in your pocket. It's like getting a rebate or something, like an online rebate. So that's pretty good. For these defensive items, particularly Zhonya's, because that's going to give you an answer to Zed, who is going to be a lot stronger. So this is pretty nice for someone like a Zyra, or just really anybody that doesn't have super mana problems, that will have a problem with fed AD assassins. This makes it a little bit better. Now, people who do get Zhonya's anyways as a normal part of their rotation also get buffed by this. So like Echo, Fizz, definitely benefit from this, and they benefit from the melee stuff up here. That's why I said they were the huge beneficiaries of this, the melee mid laners. Katarina gets this double benefit of the extra AP and the extra reduced cost on that. So yeah, anyone that's naturally going to get Hourglass is going to like this, and this is going to make this just feel a little bit better if you only want to buy Seekers. And not upgrade it for a long time. If you just need some defense against AD, it's a decent option. Spellbinder, probably not going to matter. Still a niche item. Costs a bit more. You get more AP up front. It scales a little bit worse. So, still a really weird item you're not going to see a lot. Rylai's Crystal Scepter, 5 AP. Is that right, Rory? It's like an extra 100 gold value once again. Not going to break the bank, but on champions that already want to get Rylai's, this is going to be great. It's still not going to be a rush item on most champions outside of like maybe Irelia and Soul. Right, Rory? Are you putting her to bed, or are you going to bathe her?
Put her to bed.
I see. Okay,
Or am I gonna what?
Get her for a second. Bathe her.
Oh, no.
It's not happening.
No.
But this would be an indirect, like, mid-game small buff to someone like Zyra. Zyra gets some more buffs here in a second that we'll talk about. But, yeah, the Twin Shadow option is kind of weird on Zyra. You don't do it all the time, but maybe that's useful with Rylai's. That's a pretty standard item after you get Leandri's. Then you get Rylai's. So getting that extra 100 gold worth of value is pretty nice. You get that movement speed off of Mage Eyes if you complete it at 10 stacks instead of 15. So that makes it a bit more attractive if you're one of the people that likes to go for like a, that's right, like a Dark Seal or something on your Janna, or if you're really ahead and you want to get like a Dark Seal on Katarina, or you just want to start Dark Seal on Katarina, or whatever. That does make it, right, Rory, a little bit more interesting that you do get that move speed right away. With Janna in particular, it's interesting because she benefits so much from the move speed with her W, you know. Getting a little bit of extra damage. Is that right?
That's right.
Your W and her passive.
Make a W.
Yeah, W. Can you do a W, Rory? She says I can dab on the haters. Yeah. Is that right, Rory? You dabbing? She says I'm gonna bet to dab on your headphones here. But yeah, and then Ludens once again, biggest winner here. They dropped the gold by 100, which is great. And they give you extra mana for it, so you get the extra 100 mana.
Extra
there we go.
Food. That's Rory likes that.
You get a little bit of extra mana there.
Extra
So once again, that's going to be great on your Talias, on your Aries, anyone that doesn't have an extreme need of mana, doesn't need tier early, but likes to have some in the mid game. It's great. I was already seeing Ludens on a lot of champions, so I don't know what they're talking about weak. I mean, yeah, it's not a standard on someone like Cassiopeia Rise.
Good night.
Things like that. Good night, Rory.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, Daddy. So anyways, yeah, I think that's kind of how it's going to go down. So tier users definitely nerfed, melee champions definitely buffed in some ways. Zyra gets some collateral buffs, and Luden Echo users ended up better off than they were. Overall, I think this damage conversion, the whole attack counts as bonus damage. This is going to be immensely powerful for spell penetration people like Zyra in the bot lane. So how damage to turrets work? So you do your normal auto attack damage. Everybody knows that. But a lot of people don't realize that it also gives you bonus damage, this little purple damage that shows up. And it's the higher of either your bonus attack damage that you have or 50%, historically, 50% of your AP. So if you have no bonus attack damage and you're a spellcaster and you have 200 AP, you would do 100 extra damage to towers on hit. So it just converts it to on hit damage. That's really nice. So the first part of this is interesting in that it gives you 60% conversion instead of 50%. So now if you have 200 AP, then you're going to be hitting for 120 instead of 100. Sounds good. But the big change here, and I think this is going to be a big deal in certain circumstances, is that the entire attack becomes magic damage to the tower. Because before, just your bonus attack damage became... So let's say that you're a Zyra hitting a tower, and let's say that you have, like, I don't know, 90 AD, or whatever. You're attacking it, and you have 200 AP. Just throwing a number out there. Before, you would still do 90 AD damage, and 50% of your AP, which would be 100... That 100 extra damage would be AP, but your 90 damage would still be AD. Well, now the entire amount would be AP, so now you would do 190 AP damage. So the whole thing is AP. And why does that matter? Because spell penetration applies to towers. Any kind of penetration applies to towers. But very few people get armor penetration. Some people get lethality, right, but there's fewer and fewer people are getting things like mortal reminder type of items because they're just not very good. They're not cost efficient. If people do get them, it's by the 4th or 5th item. So, and there aren't many tanks running around, so that's rare. And lethality takes a long time to scale, so you're not going to get... I mean, it is helpful to have the lethality. I don't think things like Duskblade proc on towers. I don't know. I'm not going to look that up right now for the sake of time. But spell penetration is immediate. Unlike lethality, you get that spell penetration, the maximum amount, immediately. So as soon as you buy those sorcerer boots, that's 18 spell pen. As soon as you complete whatever that orb is, then that's going to be an extra 15 spell penetration, right? And if you have something like sudden impacts, that's going to be an additional 10 spell penetration, right? And so if we look at how much armor turrets have in magic resist, it's not a lot. They only have 55 magic resist early on. Now, yes, they do get 1 extra armor and magic resist per minute. So, you know, by the 10-minute mark, then that's going to be 65 total magic resist by the time you could reasonably get 2 spell pin items. You might be able to get it faster as a mid laner, but as a support, you know, by 10 minutes, you can probably get 2 spell pin items, right? So the spell pin, without spell pin, 65 magic resist would mean that the turret is going to block. It's only going to take 61% of the incoming damage, okay? Now, with the spell pin, it's going to take 76% of the incoming damage. That means you're doing 15% more damage to towers when you auto-attack with a spell pin champion, like Zyra. So that means that she's doing a lot more damage to these towers, and she's converting a higher AP ratio to these towers. So some champions, there aren't a lot of champions that would get spell pin plus Lichbane. And Lichbane is on hit, so it really, I mean, Lichbane's going to shred towers anyways, but if there's somebody who would get like Sork Boots plus the Orb plus Lichbane for some reason, they would absolutely obliterate towers. So something like a Ziggs, even something like a just the spell pin boots giving the 18 pin, even if you don't have double pin, it's going to help out a lot on champions like Ziggs and Twisted Fate. Now, Twisted Fate's cards, I looked him up, whenever he pulls like a blue card or something, it already converts all of his entire attack to magic damage. So it doesn't affect him other than getting the extra 10% conversion rate on there. But someone like Ziggs, I don't think Ziggs' passive converts his entire attack to magic. I'm not sure. And I use those two because historically, those are two of the best mages at taking towers. Yeah, it's bonus magic damage. Okay, so his normal attack would just do normal AD damage. So anyways, is this like extremely massive? Probably not, but it's going to help champions that get the spell pin smash turrets a lot faster. So with Zyra, who's just landing autos in lane, or even like during a siege, is going to hurt a little bit more on these towers. So that's pretty good. As far as champion goes, you know, I explained this before, pretty much everybody's getting a nerf to their mana across the board, almost everybody. There are a couple of people that are getting buffs. Now, some of the more interesting ones that I've seen are Zyra. She's going from 10 mana per 5 to 15 mana per 5. What? She's having a lot less mana growth, but mana's not really, like, a super issue for her. So this is going to make Fairy Charm. If for some reason you want to get something with Fairy Charm on it, that would be a lot. You can rent a Fairy Charm early on, and that would be super efficient. And by that, I mean buy one for 125 gold and then sell it later for 88. So you rent it for 37 gold just to now get an extra 5 mana per 5, which is just insane. So this is really going to let you, if you want to try to resurrect the Q spam early, you know, you could. I'm not sure if that's worth it or not, but you'll definitely be able to cast your spells a lot more with that. So Zyra never really had a ton of mana problems. Zyra never really had a ton of mana problems, so it's not like a huge issue for her. That's a nice bonus. You can spam your spells a lot more in lane. The other winner here that's going to be noteworthy is Morgana. She also got to 15 mana per 5. Once again, she doesn't have mana problems, but now you can more comfortably just spam your W on waves to push early. So I don't think it's going to be a huge game-breaking thing for either one of them. That just stuck out to me as bizarre that they would get 15 mana per 5. And Morgana as support is just going to be buying Fairy Charms a lot of times anyways. You know, she's going to be getting like Redemption or Ardent Censer sometimes. Like, there are a lot of options for her to get mana regen, and so I think that that is that's definitely some interesting changes there. So it definitely is a buff for them. It's pretty much a nerf for everybody else. Like, these champions get it. They don't need the mana regen that much, but it's whatever. Let's see, Zillion got a little extra mana, which is nice. But he's a tier user, typically, and so he's overall hurt. So most people are going to be hurt by these changes. Quite a lot, mana over time. So once again, in most cases, by the time you reach maximum level 5, some a little bit later, but you're going to be getting less overall mana, but you have higher mana regen. So, you know, if you're getting an extra 2 mana per 5, which is what most people are getting, you're getting an extra 24 mana refunded per minute. And in exchange, you're losing per level somewhere around like 24. If you look at most of these, maybe a little bit more. So, you know, you're regenning back about the same amount that you're losing per level, but then the per level obviously stacks, right? So if you go up like 5 levels, then overall, you know, you've lost a lot, like 100 something mana, but your regen goes up the same amount. So you get 2 more base, but I think it still scales at the same rate that it did before. So early on, there's not going to be that much of a difference, but later on, there will be a bigger difference. And, you know, once you get your mana item, then you should be okay. It should stabilize your mana, but then later on into the game, there'll be a lot less spamming. So overall, achieves the effects that I mentioned before. You just have to be more careful with your spells. I think it's good for the game. Okay, let's go ahead and move on so we can maybe get this done in time. A lot of changes. Okay, Amumu, Q change, not going to matter. It's nice that he has mana buffs, but he can still just get completely obliterated if he gets invaded. He still needs blue very heavily. Most people don't max Q first. You could go for a Q max, but I think he really has to have his W for clear, or his E. His kit's just really outdated. He needs an update. Interesting champion, still not going to be that strong in the meta. You know, maybe in like a super team fight comp, in like bronze, silver, something like that, where people just clump up, then he might be good, but team fight comps aren't amazing right now. We'll talk about why, especially around these Baron changes here in a little bit. It's more like split and pick comps are a lot better with assassins and split pushers, but you know, it's just not the meta for him right now. Itemization for AP junglers is pretty terrible compared to other options, and his kit's just pretty old and needs some help. So I like Amumu, he's cool, but they realize he's a problem. It's a nice buff. He needs some help, but it's just not going to be enough. Caitlyn can't headshot minions anymore, but gets a little bit of compensatory damage. It's not going to matter. This doesn't fix her problem. She still pushes waves too heavily with her normal attacks and with her Q. It's too much wave clear. Her traps give too much zone control. She has too much free harass. She's difficult to harass back. She's just too strong right now. I think she needs more nerfs. Dr. Mundo, interesting changes. This could make him really good in the top lane. You know, people can get executioners and still counter him pretty hard. This isn't going to matter as much in the early to mid game, a little bit, but late game it will matter quite a bit. Depends on the meta. I still think that Conqueror users can destroy him later on, but this might make him a lot more competitive against other tanks. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be a massive... He does quite a bit of damage, though. Later on, so you know, we'll see. I don't think people will try him out. I don't think he's going to be ridiculously abusive because I think they've nerfed a lot of the other tank items and things, but against other tanks maybe he's better, like against an Ornn or a Shin, maybe this makes him a bit more competitive. It's interesting. It's a good buff. He's, you know, on the weaker side right now. Garen changes. This definitely helps. I think this would make a bigger difference in silver and bronze. He can get outplayed later on, but it's not like he's awful right now. I feel like he's okay. This gives him a lot more damage if he maxes his Q, which usually you max your E, I'm pretty sure. Your spin to win. So this is okay. Nice buffs. Don't think it'll make a huge meta change. This makes it where Irelia can jungle. Should she jungle? Different question. I don't know. This might help a lot. It might not. I'm not an expert on Irelia jungling. I don't think it's going to make a huge overall splash in the meta, though. Maybe, maybe not. I want Ivern to be a thing. I'm just not sure if he's back yet. He's my favorite jungler of all time. He's great. He needs this number to be lower, though. It's just too hard for him in the early game, especially at higher elos. People can invade and beat him up. If people ward properly and don't allow him to 3-buff them, so if they don't allow him to go over and steal a buff, it makes it very hard for him to get ahead early game. And a lot of people know that Ivern's going to go steal their buff level 1, so watch for it, especially like gold and higher. So he's okay. He's just been nerfed so many times, and this doesn't affect a lot of his core problems, which are he can't fight anybody early, and the scaling on his items is just... or the scaling on his shield has just been nerfed too much. This is nice. They improve the width of the Q. It moves so slow, and it has such a slender skill box or hitbox that this is a really nice quality of buff. This quality of life buff. This is the biggest thing in his kit. Now this stuff, yeah, you can steal camps later on, but that's really not his issue later on. You know, it's his early game that's the issue. They need to increase how fast he can do his camps early, and they need to increase his health. They need to decrease the amount of health it costs to do the camps. So that's my thing, is that or they need to increase the difficulty of the jungle for everybody else. So they need to make it more valuable so that everybody slows down in the jungle. So either the jungle needs to get slower so that he doesn't fall as far behind early, or he needs to get faster with his clear and safer. So one of those things needs to happen for him to come back into the meta, probably. But overall, I like him. He's great. He's just a balancing nightmare because he's basically an enchanter in the jungle. And enchanters, they give them a special pass on their items a lot of the time because they're really slow to get them in terms of gold. And, you know, their items are just balanced around other lanes not poaching them. So people, they don't want other lanes poaching their, you know, Redemptions or Athene's Unholy Grail or Ardent Censer. They don't want other roles to have that. Although, if people play more like Zyra or AP type of champions, like Brand, things like that, then Ivern becomes a lot more attractive. Because that's another thing right now, is if you already have a Janna or a Nami who's going to get Ardent Censer and Redemption, it doesn't help to have an Ivern that's going to get the same items because you don't get much benefit out of stacking those items. So he's a lot better in a meta where you're having enchanter supports and you want those items on your team, then he's a bit better. So very good buffs. It's nice. I like that they're paying attention to him. I just don't think it's quite enough to bring him back into the mainstream. Kaisa, massive nerfs. I think this will make her average now instead of really overpowered. So she loses 2 missiles, which is a really big deal. That's like 14% damage reduction. Now it is flagged as AoE, so that it fixes her interaction with Death's Dance. So now she's not going to heal for like half of her health bar on one Death's Dance rotation because it was coded as single target for some reason. And so she would get the full 15% lifesteal off of Death's Dance. Well, now that's basically cut down to 1/3, so she's losing 2/3 of her lifesteal off of Death's Dance, which is a lot. So I don't think she's going to get that item anymore. We'll see. And then I didn't even know that Hurricane's Bolt had this interaction with her E, but apparently each one of the bolts was giving cooldown to her supercharger. So basically this would just be up constantly in a team fight, and that's really overpowered. So yeah, it used to do that with Headshot as well, with Caitlyn, and they dialed that back. So they dialed this back finally. I didn't even know it was an interaction. I didn't understand why people were going Essence Reaver Hurricane. I was like, what, you're not getting on hit. What's the point? This is the point. Okay, I never realized that. So, yeah, well, they took that away because, yeah, that interaction is definitely way too powerful. And they nerfed the duration of Supercharge by 1 second, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 20% of the duration. So they basically nerfed the duration of her, scaling, massive teamfight ability by 20%. They nerfed a key interaction on it, which I don't even know what percentage this would nerf it in a teamfight. It's a lot. So it's going to take like twice as long to charge it, at least. And then they lowered this damage by 14%. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it, Dave. Yeah, it's just 4 pretty significant nerfs. So I would say at least a 2% on her win rate. And I think she's going to be average. I already see plenty of bad Kaisa. She just doesn't have a great laning phase. It's okay, but she's really still pretty short range. She doesn't have CC. So it's easy to get bullied out, particularly by Caitlyn, Draven, champions like that early on. So she does have great scaling, but I think this will definitely knock her down a size a little bit. Kassadin, buff, probably not going to matter. I mean, he is someone who is going to benefit from, because he doesn't need to get tier, he just gets Rod of the Ages. So he is going to benefit from all the tier users getting nerfed, so that's good. So he's okay. I think he's only like a 47% win rate. This will make him better against mages early, but not later, so it's okay. I don't think he's going to all of a sudden make a huge splash in the meta, but he certainly gets a bit more viable. I expect him to go up maybe a percentage, maybe 2% based off of the tier people getting nerfed, but I think he'll come closer to 50%. Now, Kennen, this is one of the more interesting changes that I made on here. He'll probably be a pretty good split pusher top. You might even see him in the bot lane. These are pretty significant buffs. So the on hit is going, basically, if he maxes this first from 35 to 50, that's 15 extra on hit damage. That is huge. If you think about Varus and what makes Varus so strong, it was his on hit did 26 damage. Now this is only on the 5th one, right? So this isn't every single attack on hit. So it's not as extreme as something like a Varus, but it's nice. It's a nice little buff to the on hit. And one of the bigger things, it gives 100% bonus attack damage now instead of just 60%. So if you do get some bonus attack damage, it is going to give you even more. A little bit of extra damage here. The W base damage is down a little bit, but it has a 0.8 ratio. So there's 25 damage difference here. There are, 25 extra ability power here. So if you have an extra 100 ability power, then this evens out. So if you have 100 AP, then the electrical surge is going to do the same amount of damage. Now, this is the huge thing here is you get 30 to 70% extra attack speed for 4 seconds when you leave Lightning Rush. On the PBE, it said if you touch somebody, you get this. Now, the way that it's worded, it looks like you don't even have to touch anybody. You just press E, come out of it, and start fighting, and you get the huge bonus. So, I think this is really good. It adds extra damage. I think that the build will just be kind of the classic build. You'll get your Ginsu's, Hurricane, Blade of the Ruined King, so that you have good sustain on fights. You'll get the double proc off of your Blade of the Ruined King on Ginsu's. Each Hurricane Bolt will also apply Blade of the Ruined King. I'm not sure. Ginsu's, I believe... Not sure how it's worded here. I don't know if it would stack your charges of electricity faster or not. Does this count as on hit? Once every 5 basic attacks. Okay. So that's not bonus magic damage per attack. That's once every 5. So it's a buff, but it's not like insane buff. Every 5 basic attacks. I don't think that Ginsu's will affect that because that's basic attacks and it's not triggering on hit. I don't think. I'm not sure if it's going to stack that faster on the primary target. But the Ginsu's would interact with Hurricane to some extent, and those would both interact with Blade of the Ruined King. So that's just what I see a lot of pro people doing. A lot of people are trying out Kennen right now. So this is one of the more significant changes. Alright, so we're already at 41 minutes. Didn't meet the 30 minutes. Let's see if we can get to 45 or at least keep it under an hour here. Really, really want to keep it under an hour. But yeah, that's pretty much what everybody's doing is this Blade of the Ruined King, definitely, and then Ginsu's. So Ginsu's Blade Runins. It's okay. You know, it's not like all green blowing everybody away. But we'll see how it works. People are definitely experimenting with it. But yeah, I think that is interesting. I mean, Kennen is an interesting case because he does have a nice escape with his electricity. He obviously has his ult, so team fight and self-peel. He has kind of the stun lock thing where he really wants to get a lot of attack speed. People don't get Nashers on him, which is kind of weird to me, but because he benefits so heavily from cooldown reduction on his ult, I suppose, but maybe it's just too funky. I guess you need Blade of the Ruined King. That extra attack damage is nice on this item because you get double on your 5th attack. So I don't know. We'll see. It's tough to predict. He'll be a lot better. I think he'll definitely be something that might become an option again top lane. I don't know about bot lane. Maybe if they change crit, like, I haven't read the thing about them changing crit, but I've heard they're going to be nerfing crit in a couple of patches, potentially. That will make these on-hit build users like a Kennen even more valuable. So, you know, he definitely has a very unique style about him that's different from something like a Kog'Maw or something like a Varus, right? Because he has kind of that team fight potential with his E, and he's got kind of the stun potential. And I don't know if Hurricane Bolts also apply his electricity stacks every 5th hit. I just don't know about all these interactions with that champion, but I think he'll definitely be a lot more viable than he was. Leona, nice buff to her damage. Probably not going to matter that much. She's still good in matchups where she's good. She's still extremely vulnerable. Easily countered. I think this is good for support Lux because they're taking this down to 10 seconds at all ranks with the Q. So now you might be able to max your E and then your W. It does give you more damage. More base damage, and the mana cost is down, which is nice. This mana cost coming down is actually quite nice, and the cooldown goes down quite a bit, so you can harass with it. The missile speed is slower, and the radius is 310, so it's going to be a lot harder to hit it. You could still use it as harassment, and now it's going to give 200% shield no matter what, even if you don't hit somebody on the way out. Okay, so it still moves a bit slow. So I don't think Lux is going to be amazing as a bot laner. She's okay. I'm going to do a guide on Lux support soon that was commissioned by a viewer. But these are definitely some buffs. I don't think she's all of a sudden going to be like the greatest mid laner or the greatest support, but she definitely needs some help, and these are some of the areas since they're cooldowns and mana. So we'll see how it works out. I don't expect her to move the needle that much. But she is good with champions like Jhin bot lane, because if you land your stun, they land their stun, and it's just like a huge you know, the person's probably going to die, but I feel like Morgana can do that type of thing, potentially even better, or Zyra. So, I don't know. She's okay. Rammus, extra armor, good. Probably not going to change his position in the meta. Poppy, I'm not really sure why they, like, feel this weird about Poppy and are doing all these changes. It's like some of them are some pretty significant nerfs. Some of them are buffs. I really just don't see this champion hardly ever. So they're lowering her base movement speed. They're increasing the range on her passive, which is nice, and you can, you know, throw it to enemy champions more. They're lowering her bonus movement speed. Or they're making it 30% at all levels. Resistances are down. Okay, so they're making her a lot less tanky. They're increasing her engage range, her trading, and they allow people to... They're nerfing the damage a little bit and allowing people to still hit them while you knock them up. I don't know. She's still going to be a niche pick and probably good in certain matchups. Maybe good against Camille, good against Rakan, and a few other sort of niche matchups. I don't expect her to make a huge splash, but she's alright. I don't think we're going to go back to the days of busted Poppy with this, but she's still pretty good in the matchups where she's good. Shyvana, they're really going to make you try to do like an AP Shyvana build. I guess you would do that in lane, probably. How much damage does her E do? 70 AP. It's on a long cooldown, though. Oh, this is not even... It's not even AoE until, like, you use it with Dragon Form. She gets 100 AP. I don't know. It's gimmicky. I don't see people going AP Shyvana. I mean, maybe people try it out. I don't think it's going to be a big thing. Sona gets a little bit of extra attack damage, a little bit extra damage on Power Chord. It's not going to matter. She's going to get nerfed pretty hard because she can't get tier as much. Yeah, maybe you could. And this isn't even 5 damage every attack. It's only whenever you Power Chord. You know, it's not going to matter. She still has tough matchups. I think that Nami's still better than her most of the time. What did her MP5 change to? Did they change it? No, it looks like they didn't alter it. I guess they can't consider Zyra a mid lane mage or something. Maybe they're trying to help mid Zyra. I don't know. So her mana situation didn't change. They nerfed tier a lot. She's okay. She's okay, but I don't think it's going to move the needle that much on her. Syndra, this is going to be way better for Syndra. I think this is going to give you much more poke damage, but then you have to measure that against how much extra mana stuff costs. So I think this is good for her, but the spheres don't stick around as long, so your ult's not going to pack as much of a punch. But being able to poke people down with the spears, it'll probably give you more sustained damage, but less burst. Although it's going to take more... it's going to take a lot less setup, I guess, to kill somebody, because you don't have to have so many spheres sitting on the ground. If you just hit them with a couple of spheres, you might be able to ult them and all in and kill them faster. So I think that's a faster way to kill, but if you set up, then you're going to have less of those one-shots with the ult if you miss all your spears. So I think that's good. More skill expression with Syndra. Good job. Extra 75 range. That's actually a pretty big deal. We'll see. Talon is definitely going to be a beneficiary. I think his mana costs are under control, kind of. He doesn't usually get mana items, so I would assume they probably are okay. The Seekers nerf hurts him, but because he's a melee champion early on, he'll be okay. I think Zed's going to be the bigger winner here, but Talon still is good in the matchups where he's good. Warwick, they really didn't nerf this champion. He's way too good at all elo levels. He doesn't really have a lot of weaknesses. And so they are nerfing his attack damage. Okay, fine. I don't think that's a huge deal, but that might hurt his wave clear early on, which I would like. And then maxing Q early on doesn't matter as much, but when he gets it at level 9, it's 2% of the champion's damage. Or the champion's max health. It's okay. They need more nerfs to him. They need to nerf his durability with his W. And, like, the healing off of his Q. Something like that. Either the healing off of the Q or the durability on the W. He just does too much damage, and he's too tanky, and he's too mobile for what he does. And he has really good CC sweep between his W and his ult. He just does too many things. Like, he's really good at clearing the jungle. He's really good at taking objectives. He's really good at long fights. He's really good at skirmishing, one-on-one, early, mid, and late. There just aren't... Like, the only thing is, like, maybe he can be CC'd and, like, taken care of, but it's really hard to do that because he can dodge CC whenever he latches onto somebody with his Q and goes around them. Then he gets around flashes. He becomes, like, not untargetable, but, like, unstoppable. So he can dodge CCs in that way, like a good Warwick with his Q. You know, if you do CC him, it's hard to blow him up because he can W. He can jump through CC with his ult. It's just too hard to get a hold of this guy and kill him, I think. So he's just too strong at all stages of the game. I think they need to identify, okay, we either want to make him early game strong and fall off harder late, or we want to make him a monster late game and really weak early. He can't be good at all phases of the game. So it's at least they've noticed he's a problem, but they need to nerf him more. I know he doesn't see a lot of pro play, but in solo queue, it's too much of a Fiesta, and he's one of the kings of the Fiesta out of the jungle. Hextech Minefield, it's okay. I think this is the least interesting aspect of Ziggs' kit. You just basically throw mines on the ground. It creates zoning problems. It does like what they don't want to do. It encourages non-interaction by creating zones of control around things and giving too much wave clear. I think they should have given power to his W. Just lower the cooldown across the board. Just make it like 16 minutes down, or 16-second cooldown down to like 12 seconds or something, and just make it to where you can activate it in the air. Because that's the really cool thing, is trying to blow people back with your W, blow yourself forward, and potentially if you could throw it in the air and then blow people back into your team, or like stop people that are jumping through the air at you, like a Lee Sin or a Zac if you timed it right, that would be so cool. That's one of the most fun interactive parts of his kit. This is the least fun interactive part of his kit, so he does need some love. I just think this is an unhealthy way to do it. I don't think it's going to matter that much. I think the mana nerfs are probably going to hurt him too much, but at least they want to give him some buff, so overall that's good. They fixed the interaction between Rageblade with Jhin, Infernal Drake, and Master Yi. I believe that Master Yi and Jhin both had recursive scaling. I think that's what it's called. But basically, like, each stack of whatever their abilities are, like, scaled with Ginsu's in a very degenerate way, to where Jhin could sometimes crit people for, like, 2,000 HP. I mean, people have seen those things with Jhin on the internet. So, you know, good. They fixed it. So this is going to hurt Jhin. It's going to hurt Master Yi. Those are the two primary abusers, and those two are over the top and too strong in certain circumstances. Master Yi more so than Jhin, but I'm glad they're fixing that a little bit. Baron Nashor, we'll have to see how this pans out. You know, I might have to just do a whole other video on this and research it. The thing that I think is going to happen here is people are just not going to do Baron as much. Teamfight, like, there are certain comps, like teamfight comps, want to go up and potentially start Baron to force a fight, and then they peel off of Baron to go deal with people that are trying to look at him. That's going to be a lot harder to do because Baron's going to do a lot more area of effect damage. Now it's going to take a lot longer to kill, and so people will have more time to show up and poke you down, or just kind of like run around and slow you down and wait till you get low and then come in to assassinate you. So this is going to hurt teams that want to try to force a fight, force a team fight around Barons. It's going to be a lot more dangerous to do that. So this is going to encourage people who have strong split push comps like a Camille or a Fiora are going to benefit very heavily from this, because people aren't going to be able to force Baron as much. And it's going to hurt the assassinate type of champions in a meta where there just aren't going to be as many team fights. There's not as many Baron contestations. There's going to just be more running around and more Talon and Zed picking people off when teams aren't grouped up. So this is going to hurt teamfight comps, I think, more so than anyone else. So Baron is a lot more dangerous. A lot less people are going to take Baron. It also helps poke and siege champions. So particularly Caitlyn. Caitlyn doesn't want to be doing Baron. She wants to line up and siege your tower. So I think overall, is this good? It's difficult to say. It's going to make it harder to sneak Baron too. Not many champions could do that, especially now that they've nerfed Ginsu's and Yi's interaction. Hopefully he can't solo it at 20 minutes like he could before. Overall, it's good. But if their goal is to try to get people to fight more, to force more action, then I think this is bad. Because I just don't think, especially pro teams, they're just not going to try to do Baron as much anymore. Because it's just too scary. It's going to put way too much damage on people. So, we'll see how it works. This is one of the changes I'm not quite sure about. I think it's probably bad because there's going to be less interaction that you can force. And it's good to force interaction. But we'll see. Summon Rift Herald. This, however, is the opposite. This is very good. This is going to make Rift Herald really valuable right now. Right now, it's like it's an okay buy. Usually you'll get Rift, and maybe you can get one tower out of it. Maybe. But people still heavily sit on the bot lane and just camp bot and just, you know, get all of the dragons and just 4-man dive bot all the time. I don't think this is going to stop all of the camp bot, but now if your jungler for some reason just keeps hanging out top lane, and they're just camping you bottom, now you can tell them, go get Rift, and it'll actually be kind of a decent trade-off if they get Rift, even if you're losing Odyssey as bottom and potentially die, you know, then Rift will be a good alternative if your jungler wants to camp top for some reason. And I say that because you shouldn't. You should camp bottom most of the time, because that's where all the best rewards are. But this does help balance the map a little bit more to give more emphasis on the top lane. So basically this thing, especially when it's lower health and it charges that second turret after you get the first one, it's going to do a ton of extra damage, half of the tower's health. Even if it's at 1 HP and manages to get a hit in there, it's going to do a lot. So I think Rift Herald's going to be a lot more valuable. And then finally, and I guess we'll get it done in under an hour. Didn't get 15 to 30, but we got it under an hour, and that is progress. That's progress from like the hour and a half that I used to do. Okay. So, Unsealed Spellbook. I don't think a lot of champions are going to get this, not because it's cool, or not because it's not cool, because it is. It is interesting. But just because the Inspiration Tree has been nerfed so much that there just aren't good complementary runes to go with this on most champions that might want to do Unsealed. There might be some. So someone like Blitz who really like would like something like a Flash Traption or maybe an Alistar, who might like Flash Traption or some of these other things. But like back in the heyday when Unsealed was really popular, it wasn't just because it gave 20%, 25% cooldown reduction on abilities, which that was really good, but it was also because Magical Footwear and Perfect Timing were much, much stronger, and you could get both of them. So you could get you know, Magical Footwear, Perfect Timing, and Cosmic Insight. And that was just a trifecta of just really, really good value back in the Unsealed Spellbook heyday. So, the fact that this has changed now, in and of itself, it is good. I think some of the best uses for this will be a split push jungler who doesn't necessarily need other runes. So, like, someone like Yi or Camille out of the jungle could use this. They would have to give up either Press the Attack or Conquer. In the case of Yi, I don't know what Camille gets in the jungle. I assume she probably gets something like Press the Attack. She's obviously not going to get Comet like she does top lane. So what this would enable is every 4 minutes you would have a teleport pretty much, because you could take your Smite plus Flash and then just trade out your, you know, your Smite for teleport if you needed to and just push bot lane or whatever. So this would allow you to do a 1-3-1 comp with your jungler. So that's the thing that jumps out to me the most, especially in solo queue, is you have good champions that could split push bottom, like a Yi, like a Jax jungle, like a Camille. Warwick could even split because he can beat most people one-on-one. He doesn't have great wave clear. But there are a lot of champions that are like potentially good duelists out of the jungle right now that could split, but they can't because they don't have teleport and they don't want to give up Baron pressure. But now they could take Unsealed Spellbook, switch into that teleport, and then, you know, potentially go make a play that way. So that is interesting, but once again, there's just not good stuff, or there's not as much good stuff as there used to get. So what else are you going to get? Okay, your Master Yi in the jungle. You want to try this, you can split push late game and run a 1-3-1. Like, what else do you get? Do you get Magical Footwear and Minion Dematerializer and like Cosmic Insight or something? Like, that's awful. Like, you don't want to do that. So that's kind of the trade-off. I mean, if anything, maybe a support, like a support Scion might like this. He does. I mean, a lot of people do like Comet Scion in lane. You would give up a lot of lane pressure if you did this. But in theory, you could go something like, you know, Spellbook, Footwear, Dematerializer, and I don't know, Cosmic Insight, and then that would allow you to potentially split push bottom and then take teleport later. But then you can't fight anybody if you do that as a split push option. You just have to split and like try to run away. So there might be some supports that might be able to do that. But the problem is, it's just the rest of the tree is just not, it's just not viable. On the rest of the tree, it's so bad. Another option maybe would be like Sivir. So Sivir's like an 80 carry who can split. So Sivir could in theory, take this, and then, you know, she could go something like, you know, once again, Footwear, Materializer, Cosmic Insight, and take the Spellbook, and then she could split and then teleport to lane later if she wanted to, so that's also kind of an option. But once again, you're not taking Fleet Footwork, you're not taking, you can still go Alacrity and get, like, a couple of things, you know, you could still get, or other Precision Tree, you could go Alacrity and you could go something like Coup de Grace, you could get 2 pieces out of that. You would miss out on, the healing one, but, and, you would miss out on Fleet Footwork and Triumph, that's the word I'm looking for. Is that worth it? You'd have a lot less sustain in lane. I guess you could go Biscuits instead of Materializer in lane. You could go like Footwear, Biscuits, Cosmic Insight, or even Footwear, Biscuits, Time Warp Tonic, and have some really good sustain in lane if you're against a tough lane, maybe. I don't know. I mean, people might try it. Like, the best uses, I think, would be that. Another use that could be really popular is top lane Ignite users. So that's another thing that I mentioned there. So you could have like a Pantheon take this. You could have just anyone top lane that has the potential to get some kills could take Ignite, and then if they need to teleport, they could just switch to teleport and teleport later. So you'd have Ignite for lane to force kill pressure. Is that worth like not having your other runes? So someone like Rumble might like this, because Rumble doesn't necessarily need the other runes. Like Scorch is nice, Airy is nice with Rumble. But you don't need Mana Flow Ban. You'd have to take Ulti Hat, which is like okay. Celerity is okay on him. So, I mean, maybe someone like Rumble would like this, and then if you ran this with Rumble, you know, you could just, I guess you'd just go Footwear, Materializer, Cosmic again. So Rumble might like this. You could take Ignite and have Kill Pressure level 6. Pantheon might like this, but I'm not sure. I think Conquer is probably just better, or Press the Attack. It's just, there's very, very few use cases where people would want this. So it's someone who doesn't really want Conquer that much, that might be like an Airy user top lane, because you could have Ignite, and that would provide just as much early pressure or more than Airy would. So yeah, maybe Rumble with Ignite. Maybe there might be some mid laners. But a lot of those or maybe Pantheon probably uses Electrocute, actually. I mean, the thing is, like, a lot of assassins that might like Ignite probably run Electrocute instead. Like, would Rise like this? I don't know. Or, like, I'm trying to think of who used the other, like, unsealed spellbook sometimes. Rise, but Rise is not going to have enough pressure with Ignite. I don't know. Someone will find a use for it somewhere, probably, but I don't think it's going to make a huge impact on the meta for most champions, just because the Inspiration Tree is so bad and you're giving up so much damage. You do have Ignite, which is great for early pressure damage, but if it's a scaling rune like Conquer, like Electrocute, you'd probably rather just have that, plus Ignite potentially. So it's someone who would want Teleport, who wants to split, but does not necessarily... Maybe Vlad? Yeah, Vlad. Maybe Vlad does this? What are people building on Vlad? Because Vlad doesn't need, like, the mana or mana flow ban. So, like, non-resource mana users, Vlad, Rumble. Vlad definitely, yeah, he uses Unsealed Spellbook all the time. So maybe this is a thing on Vlad. Vlad obviously benefits as well from the nerfs to all of the AP champs. So that's good. And he really likes using the new Shirelius as well. So maybe it's good on Vlad. Vlad, Rumble. Because they don't benefit that heavily from Airy. They would like Ignite early. Yeah, and it's the same thing I mentioned. Footwear, Dematerializer, Cosmic. And you can still get Taste of Blood, Ravenous. So, yeah, maybe those two. So very, very niche cases. Looks like Rumble uses Comet. I don't know. I mean, maybe that is what's best on Rumble. Anyone that used the old spellbook might use this one. I don't know. I'm not sold that just because Inspiration is such a weak tree right now. I'm not sold that it's good for everybody. And then the final thing, we'll see. That one's kind of difficult to predict. But if it does get used, it'll be for people who take Ignite, want to switch to Teleport, and want to split push later. And aren't sacrificing too much by missing out on primarily Conquer, Electrocute. Conquer and Electrocute, I think, are the big ones that might hold people back. Because you're giving up too much damage that scales with those. But we'll see. Chrysalis' adaptive damage was apparently bugged, so it switched back to only giving you health when you were in combat, and it just gave you the AP or the AD when you're out of combat, so they switched that back. So this is really good for enchanters, primarily, that can use Chrysalis for that safety early and then scale later with the AP. And that's going to be it. So I didn't, like I said, I didn't quite keep it to the 15 to 30. I did get it shorter, though. I got it under an hour 30, so we're making progress. I am going to try to make videos a lot faster. There's so much on this patch. Like I said, Freak had an hour-and-a-half video. Skara had like an hour and 15 minutes on it. There's just a million changes on this. So if you're doing a real analysis, it just takes time. There's so much. But I try to do it as fast as I possibly could. Okay, any of these bug fixes? The cat thing seems okay. This is actually pretty good. So that's a good buff to Zed. I don't think anything else here caught my eye that was, like, really big for most people. Okay, well, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.